Do we want to hear your complete, comprehensive presentation of the topic, maybe going through your slides with us?
Okay. Yeah, I'll just speak about this, a little bit. But okay, Howard wants to save his stuff, and you're going about it in a very reasonable way. But 300 years is a long time, and there's many reasons why. Just it may fall apart, and somebody's going to forget it, destroy it, throw it out. It becomes unavailable for 100 reasons. So I was thinking, what, and even if it's saved, does anybody want to use it? And then people end up using it for purposes that are very different and distinct from what you intended. Um, so all those threats, and then you have to say, um, what actually will be saved, and if it's not what you're preparing, you know, what is likely to be saved, and are there any um, kind of strategies that you're not using that you might consider? Just based on the results that we've seen so far. You know, um, some of the stuff we hear about is just by chance, and the really good stuff we didn't get, and yet we still think it's good. I was just reading about um, uh, Japanese art today, and all those wonderful pictures we see of the big wave in Hiroshige, and apparently the experts all agree that's the sort of junky stuff. The really good stuff, hardly anybody pays attention to anymore. And now, what is that? Is that the opinion of the new critics? And who's right? So we have all these problems of saving something, and I just thought it would be interesting to have a discussion about how something techniques that might be used to save, and it could be tricks. So I was thinking, um, well, what you could do is make it as secret as possible, so that when somebody discovers it and uncovers it, like King Tut's tomb, it's a fantastic discovery.
Right.
But it would have to be, you know, secret, or put in a cryptic or a coded language, or written in stone instead of digital, because it'd get lost. But if it's physical and
Hang on, I'm going to be listening, but I've got to get myself a lozenge before I cough all through your
right.
talk. What you're saying is very interesting. I like your
And
idea.
I think something I just saw too. I guess it was on Colbert. He showed a picture of a Sumerian, frieze, and it was a little picture of a couple having sex. And I'm thinking, well, that's fantastic. If you can make your record something really bawdy, uh, that's an interest that everybody will continue to have throughout history. So if you can make a dirty story, you might be able to throw your philosophy into the middle of it. I'm sort of playing around with that myself, writing trying to finish a novel where there's some philosophy in it, but you got to throw in some sex, and maybe that would, or philosophical sex. Now that would be different. Um, so and then um, possible you can just say you want to write a classic that has that's timeless. Well, there are a few of those, but it's hard to say what they would be. And then if you want to write something timeless, it may be repetitive. All that territory might have already been claimed, so that's a little different. And if it's completely different, that's another problem, because then you're an outlier. You could be just part of the stuff that that there's always cranks, and oddball people throughout history, and it's like, how much of that ever gets looked at again. Although I do think there's plenty of things that should be looked at again. For a couple hundred years now, we've been saying, there's no inheritance, from experience. It's all, in the DNA, and yet, now we're suddenly realizing that there are acquired characteristics, and all those crazy ideas about acquired characteristics may have a physical possibility that it occurs, and maybe we should look back at some of that literature that we thought was so terrible. So just another thought I was thinking, I was just reading a review of two books about the Renaissance, and it was really interesting. Both books say there's no such thing as a Renaissance. It got made up, and so everybody's been referring to it and writing about it, but it has no distinct difference from before or after. It was just a whole lot of people doing different things that are of interest, but why call it the Renaissance? So even something as supposedly permanent as an era can get erased. So maybe what you should do is just assert that what you're saying is absolutely unique, never said before, and challenge readers to disprove you. So those are some ideas, and another approach is simply say, like, I was reading Marcus Aurelius, and he says in the Stoic view of things, say, hey, it sounds very modern to me, but he says we're just a blip in time, we're just a speck in the universe, and who cares? We come and go. Make the most of it, but forget about your reputation. Your job is to be good and to help others, and forget about your posterity. It's just not going to matter. So there's some very famous people who said that too, and that could be a relief. And finally, one thought, you said J. Alfred Prufrock, or whatever, if you're age 50, you're too late. You should have been working on it. There is that literature that says in every field there are people who make their mark, and so if you're a physicist and you're at age 30, it's too late. You're not going to get anything done. But my hope is there's one area, lexicographers, they really make their mark at age 90. So you had Webster and Roget's Thesaurus and so forth. Those were put out when they were still in their 90s. So it's still possible to be creative. So there we have it.
Well, we've hit a new demographic era. Where I'm 82. Last week I saw a report on television about a woman who turned 107. And last year or 2 years ago, if they were interviewing somebody who was 107, that person has pretty well lost his or her memory and ability to articulate. Not this year. The 107-year-old woman was on top of things. She knew exactly what she was saying. She was a little slow in the way that she spoke, but hey, she's 107. Give her a break. The point is, the longevity experts these days are not so much talking about extending the number of years we get on the planet. They're talking about extending the quality of life into those last 20 years or more. And whatever is being done, I know I'm taking a bunch of things that the longevity researchers have recommended. Who knows if they're going to have any effect? Because what really keeps you alive is what you said from Marcus Aurelius, doing good and doing things on behalf of other people. And my 8 books are there to present you entirely new perceptual lenses, to bowl you over and make you get back up on your feet again and say, oh my God, I see the world in a whole different way. Or as one interviewer from a bookstore appearance a couple of weeks ago said, you've opened up a whole new neural tract in my mind. Well, that's the task. And then I have to use the tricks that I've learned from other people who promoted themselves. Plato. What did Plato do? He used something I call the name game. He wrote a supposed dialogue between Socrates and every single super famous man he could find in Athens.
Name dropping, yeah. So it'll do it.
Exactly. So I have hundreds and hundreds of quotes from people at Harvard, people at the National Science Foundation, people from the Smithsonian, people all over the place, MacArthur Genius Award winners about my books, because Plato played that game very successfully, and cynically, I have to play that game too. Plus, I have to play that game to understand, Kent, if my books are really doing what I'm hoping they do. You can delude yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to show that your work actually succeeds. And for these people, the books absolutely hit home. So there is, as I said, there's probably more than 100 people who've given blurbs on my books, but they are blurbs of unusual enthusiasm.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, I just in the post yesterday, front page, they had an article about lithium, which, was like knocked me over. They said, by the way, people who have dementia have not enough lithium in their brain, and that might be a way to prevent all this, problems with brains when we get older.
Great.
Yeah.
That would be fabulous.
So we're going to have to get some of that right away.
Right. So there is one. There's the guy who was the leading researcher on longevity at Harvard. In his book, makes the case for quality of life being more important than duration of life. And you read through the whole thing, 280 pages. And then on the last page, he says, and this is what those of us in the field are using.
Oh, man.
And they're using metformin, which is a diabetes drug, and they're using something called NMN. So my doctor was a little puzzled when I asked him for metformin. He said, "You don't have diabetes." No, apparently it has an effect on longevity, and NMN is available from your health food store.
Okay.
Metformin
What is
here.
that, Jason?
Metformin here.
Uh-huh.
Okay.